How's everyone doing today? Let's go. Love to hear it, my friend. Let's go. We got a new person of interest, my friends. We're moving on from Dougie Fresh since we got his ass fired, his team taken away. We're gonna get into our new friend, Mr. Rick Scott. He's gonna be our new buddy. We're gonna be harassing for a little while here. We need a. I'm not gonna be doing any diagrams this one, but we do got a lot of stuff to go over. So I'm gonna get started here pretty quick. I'm not gonna wait for a whole bunch to keep jumping in here. So how's everyone doing? Let's get into our friend Mr. Rick Scott here. So, he's been making the news quite a bit lately on social media here. And yesterday came out that he made 26 million in trades. And he didn't discuss these trades for more than a year later. Now the Insider Information Act only actually, protects him for 180 days. So for quite a bit, obviously you're talking 9, 10, 11, 12 months after. So pretty much he broke the law right there. And he only made $26 million doing that. Now, if you don't know who our buddy here, Rick Scott, is, Rick Scott actually did the largest Medicare fraud in the history of the United States. He stole billions from elderly. He stole as much as he possibly could. Now, normally with us, we would be in prison at this point, but he ends up getting charged with 14 felonies. He pleads guilty to 14 felonies and he ends up paying a fine of $1.7 billion. So instead of going to prison, he serves zero jail time. So like normal, they never go to prison. They just buy their way out of it. This guy pays 1.7 billion with elderly people's money that he stole from them through his fraud. And this is who we are putting in front of our politicians. Now the reason he became my person of focus is, let's listen to this video. I'm sure you guys remember this one.
It's suspect because I made money. I don't know how many people in the audience, how many of you don't want to make money? Anybody want to be poor? I don't. Right? So this idea that we're going to attack people because they make money is wrong. Is absolutely wrong. We should cherish all of our different backgrounds. Every one of us has a different background. I've got a business background. But what I was just accused of is making money, and somehow I can't be fair and do things the right way.
Which I just showed you. He can't be fair and do things the right way. By not being fair and doing things the right way, he stole another $26 million. So all this guy has done his entire life is literally been a criminal. We have criminals on red, we have criminals on blue, it does not matter. Both sides are the same thing. We vote in politicians that are rich as hell. This guy at the same time, since he has been in office, has made over $300 million in the stock market. People want to focus on Nancy Pelosi, and yeah, she's literally the biggest piece of shit out there, but this dude is fucking beyond something else, dude. This guy is way worse. Like I said, you heard, this is how they think. They don't care about us. They don't care about shit. They care about themselves coming in and getting as much as they can, stealing as much as possible, taking as many bribes. If these guys put their sponsorships on, they'd have more sponsorships than NASCAR drivers. It wouldn't even be close. This is the problem. These people are committing treason. They're committing felonies over and over and over again. And all they do is get slaps on the wrist while we get prison time. But yet, like I said, this is the problem. And all of these corporations that pay these guys money, what did they get out of this? Well, if you guys look at these charts I showed you last week, over the course of 45 years, basically the chart shows you wages have been stagnant. They haven't really rose at all. They've barely moved at all. And then if you go over to here, the price index has gone up exponentially. It's almost caught up to the wage index. And this is the problem. You go get a hamburger now and it's $15, $16 at a fast food place. Well, guess what? That's somebody's hourly rate. They've been able to convince people long enough that if you don't raise the minimum wage, these guys at Taco Bell, they can't work. They should be able to afford anything. And this is the problem. and why they've been able to get everybody to think that way, what's been happening? Well, if you look at the CEO's average pay now compared to their employee, the average CEO now makes 285 times their average workers. This has gone up from last year from 268. They always find reasons to fire people. They always find reasons, excuses why they have to raise prices. When in reality, no, they just need to keep getting bigger raises. Now, this does not count stock right here, which we'll get into next. This does not count stock. This just counts their pay rate. This is just pay. So again, these CEOs are able to bribe politicians through dark money, which we can't track, so you have no idea who's donating what. When they're done with politicians, they donate it to their family charities, and then they get to go ahead and make it tax write-offs, and then their family members goes ahead and gives it to them because if they're a nonprofit, they have to do at least 20%, I believe it was, but if they're a for-profit, they only need to put about 1% in. They don't even need to technically put in any towards the research that they say they do. So again, it's just loopholes after loopholes, and again, we're allowing criminals to be in charge of all of us. And like I said, this is both sides. I can keep getting into a politician every week if we want. I really don't care, but we'll always find content that way. But the other thing I wanted to show you guys was this chart here. So while we're talking about CEO pay rates compared to employee pay rates, if you guys look here, CEO pay growth since 1978 has gone up 1,085%. At the same time, your average worker has gone up 24%. Now, this granted column here, this is the stock. So, as you can see, just off stock compensation alone compared to us, they've gotten up 932%. So if you look over here, CEO ratio compared to their workers, their pay rate alone is 290 to 1, and then their stock value is 192 to 1. So this is the problem. They continuously get stock bonuses. They convince people they shouldn't have to pay more because if they pay more, they have to raise prices. But as you can see here, no matter what, they raise prices. It's just an excuse for them to not pay you as they raise prices. Look throughout history. There's never, look at this. There's, other than right here in 2008, because they had no choice, the entire economy crashed. You have never seen it go down. And it was temporary. So this is the problem. This is the problem here in the United States. These guys are able to, like I said, keep making these pay gaps, and on top of that, keep making their stock more and more and more and more valuable by committing crimes and forgery. Now, everybody that was talking about, Trump's going to fix this, we're going to fix our debt, we're going to fix our deficit. I'm sorry, I was looking at the bottom there. Did it already get you with one? Let me see if I could tone him down. There you go. We toned him down. So, again, everybody that was so excited before about his 27 billion surplus, well, guess what? The next month he had a 291 billion deficit. So that 27 billion surplus was more than erased. He pretty much just pushed things off so we could have, hey, look, we got a surplus this month, and all of a sudden this is the second biggest deficit, as you can see here, in history. The only other time was in 2021. So again, he just pushed things down so he could get better reporting, and this is exactly what people hated Biden for. So, oh, and by the way, 2021, who was president? Trump. So again, Trump has the biggest deficits twice. So he's got the first and second in, and he calls this winning. Now, this is yesterday's, so today it's going to get even higher. Yesterday we went up to 37 trillion 208 billion. 208 billion. So as you guys can see, we officially added $1 trillion since July 2nd to the deficit while earning 150 billion from tariffs. And he sits there and talks about how tariffs are going to pay down the deficit. How can they pay down the deficit when you just added in 1 month $1 trillion? You only got 150 billion back. And again, who's going to end up paying this? And this is what Trump's not talking about. This is what people aren't realizing. All of us are broke. they're going to end up passing this down to the consumer. Okay? So this is why tariffs end up not working when people end up getting broke. This is why this doesn't work. Because eventually we stop buying the products. Because we can't afford the products. Because as people are now starting to see, they are passing them down to us. We'll get all into that in a second here. The reason you guys haven't seen massive price jumps yet is because all of these people had all of these supplies currently in the United States and they were selling them off at pre-tariff rate because they already know people are struggling and they just needed to sell supplies. But now, as you're seeing with all of these other companies, Walmart CEO, we see our costs increase each week as we replenish inventory at post-tariff price levels. You guys saw also Walmart's earnings were actually bad. They were below expectations. People can't even afford to go to Walmart. Again, Walmart's going to keep raising prices. So in the next 6 months, you're going to start to see tariff prices hit the shelves. It's going to be insanely expensive to do anything. On top of that, you're seeing Pepsi talk about they're going to raise their carbonate, so basically pops, all that stuff, carbonated flavored waters, all that. They're going to raise prices by 10%. You also saw Sony come out and say just in the United States, no other additional markets, just the United States. We're now raising the prices on all of our things for the first time. You have never seen a price hike on a PlayStation a year and a half, 2 years after a product's been out ever, and now you will. It's going to keep going up because, again, all these parts in these systems, he's going higher and higher. It's just going to keep getting worse. So again, as you guys can see, these corporations never, ever, ever pass. They don't eat the margin. And Trump's like, oh, we'll make these companies eat their profit margins. That's not what they're going to do. They're going to pass it on to you guys as you guys are starting to see. They're just going to raise all their prices and they're just going to price people out eventually. But until then, they're going to squeeze every last penny out of everybody because, again, somebody brought up as an example, somebody brought up video games. Well, a lot of people aren't going to be able to go out and party and do all these things. So video games, guess what? A lot of people are going to start buying video games. It's already been skyrocketing sales for video game this year. It's already on pace to break last year's record. Those are all going to, they're dominated by monopolies. And this is the problem. It's so many monopolies. Video game system, who are you going to go to? Nintendo. Well, guess what? That's tariffed. Microsoft even exports and imports all of their parts because all of us, all corporations, these mega corporations, do slave labor and nobody cares. They do slave labor in other countries so they don't have to pay Americans the proper wages. Then they convinced Americans to take lower wages. And then they convinced Americans that the debt at 37 trillion is no big deal, why they are burning inflation like crazy. Well, again, eventually you're going to have poor people and rich. And eventually you're going to have a revolution because that's all that's going to be left on the table. Now, if you guys look over here, this is the other thing that people are not talking about. You're seeing records across the board. U.S. bankruptcies soar, crossing 2020 pandemic levels. This is worse than when stores were shutting down because not a single person was going to their store because of the pandemic. Nobody can afford this, and on top of that, now you're killing all the mom and pop shops, which Trump didn't mention. You're killing all the mom and pop shops. They can't afford the new imported prices. They can't afford all this stuff. Prices still go up because, as Ford shows you, even people that produce domestically, prices rise. Ford's price rose $2 billion this year because tariffs, and they produce locally. So again, it's going to continuously cost more and more and more and more. These tariffs, people think, oh, these people, they just listen to him with no, doesn't matter what he says. Oh, he says they're going to pay him off. If you're making 50 billion in tariffs, but you're adding a trillion to the debt, how is it ever going to pay it off? I've told everybody by the end of this year, to maybe the mid of next year, Trump will already almost hit that $5 trillion addition that they added to the debt. Then he's going to ask for more money. People are going to cheer him on, and he's going to say, we need this because we're almost done fixing all of crooked Joe Biden's things. And all of his people are going to go, yep, Joe Biden made it so fucked up he needed all of this. No, they're all the same thing. They're all the same thing. Now, just to put this into perspective, the year-to-year date, now this is for large companies. These aren't just mom and pop shops. Also, this is also large companies now that are going bankrupt faster than ever because nobody's shopping in their stores. You're talking large retail stores. Now, if you look at that, retail large filing for retail is at 400, or I'm sorry, for corporations is at 446. So you're losing a lot of these bigger companies. Now, some stock things for people to look at. So like you're going to start seeing a lot of people, a lot of like a lot of these companies are going to be going down. There's going to be a lot of opportunities to make money on downtrends for a lot of these retails, a lot of these corporations. Now, I want you guys to look at this before I continue on. If you look at this chart, the entire stock market right now is propped up by 7 stocks. Listen to me. The Mag 7, listen to this. The Mag 7's market cap value is $18.8 trillion. The bottom 433 is at $18.8 trillion. We've never had the stock market basically being propped up by the S&P and the Mag 7 so hard. AI is killing off a lot of jobs. AI is killing off a lot of companies, and a lot of people now are starting to figure out they're putting this AI in. There's rumors now going around with like Amazon as an example. Amazon's looking at, because of the workers increase pay, can they start using some of these robots that you guys see on TV with Tesla and all of these things? Can they start to put them in their warehouse? They don't complain. They don't need pay raises. They don't need health insurance. They come do their job, and guess what? They don't even need to go to sleep. If they find a way to charge them as they go, I guarantee you they will. Now, here's the thing. I showed people this the other day when it comes to electricity prices are skyrocketing. Why? Because of data centers. There is a electric company right now that 90% of their data consumption is through a data center, which means it is going through the roof for everybody else because supply is being limited and the demand is now being quadrupled, quintupled, 5,000% times more because of the data center. Well, they can only give out so much. So now they're going to overcharge everybody in the city. Now, in the town that I live in right now, right next to us, is Farmington. And if you drive around all over the place, you see there's a sign right now everywhere that says "Say no to the data center." And there's websites and people are protesting it. They're trying to build a data center in Farmington, and they want. But they showed how much that's going to bring in all these jobs. Yeah, for temporarily. But what it's also going to do is destroy the entire living in the town. Price of water is going to skyrocket. Price of electricity is going to skyrocket. There's a whole bunch of other factors that come into play. The environmental factor, how much they fuck up environments. There's a whole bunch that comes into play, and we're all trying to get rid of it before it even starts. And the shittiest part about it, it's a fucking meta one. I don't want Facebook in my fucking town. Get the hell out of here. You're already garbage. I'm going to get into Mark Zuckerberg next time because I'm going to show you how big of a piece of shit he is because he tried. If you're listening, if you were in the GameStop AMC thing in 2021, Mark Zuckerberg helped fucking Vlad. Dude, look at this. We'll get into this next time. But Mark Zuckerberg actually helped Vlad. He told him how to cover it up. He told him how to cover it up. He told them how to handle the AMC GameStop crisis with PR. He pretty much told them who to fucking bribe, who he was helping with him in the government. Because as we found out, Facebook was working with the government to censor all of these things. And guess what? They showed Vlad how to get out of it in the media, get out of it in this, spin things, spin this, spin that, help him with the congressional hearing. Like I said, they're all friends. They're all pieces of shit friends that don't care. They just don't want them to get caught. Dude, my electric bill. I was just talking about it. It was like 160, and all of a sudden it was 333 last month. I'm like, what? What the hell? And I want you guys to look at this. If you're listening right now and you're wondering why the fuck is my electric bill going up, right here, look at this, which we're gonna get into. Like you guys, you got to see what's happening in front of you because it's the world's being taken from you. America's been stripped. It's gone. The America you grew up, the America you learned about, it's gone. It's been sold over 15 times to 15 different equity firms because they loaned it out. Every fucking house, every fucking piece of gold, every bit of land is loaned out to 19 people. And if anybody ever all came collecting at once, what do they tell you? Just like if all these people did a bank run, we don't have it, and nobody sees a problem with this. It's mind blowing. But look at this. BlackRock, BlackRock and Blackstone are actually buying out private equity now. Found out that they can go out and buy your utility companies and charge you 5 times the price. Now, BlackRock just recently bought a Minnesota power company in Duluth. It serves 100,000 people. The price, guess what? Skyrocketed. They're now coming in and they're saying, hey, we can buy up all their houses because look at this. I want you guys to see this. This is insanity. Listen to this. A Dallas based, just one, you guys. A Dallas based Wall Street trading firm owns 3,397 rental homes just in the Las Vegas area. This company is the second largest homeowner in all of Las Vegas. Or Las Vegas Valley, sorry. Basically, if you're going to go to Las Vegas Valley, they own the fucking property. These guys have came in, they bought up everything. They turn them into Airbnbs or rental properties. They jack the prices up. They hold the prices higher because as we showed you guys with Blackstone, they overbid the price by 30, 40,000, which raises the value on all the other houses that they bought up around it. And that's how they keep them up and how they keep them skyrocketed. Right now, a survey just came out. More people that are 70 years old are buying houses for the first time in history than people that are 35. That is insanity. That's literally ridiculous. Married and own a home by 30 years old in America. In 1950, it was 50%. In 2000, it was 35%. In 2025, 12% of people that are married and own a home by 30 years old in America. It went from 50 to 12%. That's insane. But, like I told you guys before, this is all eventually going to come to an end because retail, all of us, we're going to end up being to this point where we're not buying any of their products, as we'll get into right here. Finch ratings. U.S. consumer spending is slowing sharply. It's drastically stopping. The buy now, pay now, later bullshit came to an end. I showed you guys nobody can do that anymore because they're now using it for your credit score. It's now a credit card. So people stop doing that. Nobody has expenses. Everybody's maxed out on their credit cards. So now you're going to start to see, this is what I said, if you're listening for trading opportunities and you don't care, there's going to be a lot of downside in retail investment stores. Look for high-end class, high upper-end, stores. There you go. They're going to have lower and lower quarters. No one's going to go out and spend on these unnecessarily stupid, like you saw IKEA, you saw Bed Bath & Beyond, they're back, but you saw Bed Bath & Beyond die. Why? Because I can order one on Amazon for tenth of the cost. So no one's going to go to these stores. If you want to look for opportunities, there you go. I showed you guys all those ones earlier with retail stores last time. They all went down really hard. Um, it, over here, another thing I wanted to, people to look at when it comes to trading. In my Discord, a couple days ago, I told everybody the lockout period ended for CoreWeave, and everybody should get short-term puts close to the money. And guess what? The very next day, it dropped $12. It dropped like 15%. And those puts played pretty good. The other thing we did, like I said, I always be looking for trades, guys. The other thing we showed everybody was the Roblox trades. Um, I was posting it over and over and over again. There's going to be lawsuits with Roblox. There's going to be all. Oh, here you guys go. Right here, by the way. Here you go. BlackRock and Blackstone have moved into U.S. electric utility markets. BlackRock acquired a Minnesota company for more than $6 billion. Blackstone purchased a New Mexico utility company. This utility company serves 800,000 people. One paid 11 billion, or one paid 6 billion, one paid 11 billion. Now, as we guys have shown you, when these guys get involved, what do? Just like they did with Red Lobster. They went ahead and bankrupted Red Lobster. They did their unlimited shrimp. They went ahead and sold all of the land out from under every Red Lobster to a company that they owned, and then they charged Red Lobster's rent, so Red Lobsters no longer could afford their rent. And then they kept jacking it up until it went under, and then they owned the company. Private equity is the worst thing in the entire fucking world, and it's all hidden. Now, let's go back to what I was going to show you. I've been showing this all, Roblox, like I was saying with these Roblox trades. The other thing I showed you guys, you know, I told you guys about this account before. We posted this, and guess what? The stock flew up. Another one where you got a congressman, and I tell you guys about this account. If you're going to follow a Twitter account for congressional trades, this is a good one because not only do they show you the trades they're doing, they always point out a specific one that looks pretty fucking weird, and then they show you one that they're going to have a vote on really soon. And why did they buy that stock? And guess what? You win almost every time. But like I said, the other thing you want to look at is, events like this. Roblox. Chris Hassan is working on a documentary that's investigating Roblox because they're not doing anything when it comes to child predators, people meeting kids. They literally blow it off like it's no big deal, and it's one of the top places out there where these people are. If you have children on Roblox, make sure you're watching them. That's where they're coming at. And then the other thing I posted right here, Roblox has been sued by the state of Louisiana, and it is accused of being a hunted ground for child predators. Guess what we all did? We got Roblox puts. You always want to look for news every day with these companies like that. So, like I said, guys, keep trading, keep trading. The other thing that we did is I told you guys was about the S&P 500, and if you guys have looked at that, if you looked at it over the couple of weeks, it's done nothing but explode again. Now they're 12.5%. But let's get back into this stuff over here. So I want people to understand as well, this is all going to be coming to an end. Probably pretty soon at the rate that everything's going, because everything's getting twice as bad. If you guys look right here now, margin debt, so people trading on margin that can't afford the margin debt has now hit an all-time high. It is now over $1 trillion. More and more and more relying on margin to get by now. And on top of that, the other thing you're starting to see is private credit growing because all of these people cannot no longer get approved by banks, so they're running to the shadow market. Well, guess what? The shadow market's getting tapped. It's already at 37%. It went from 16% to 30%, 37%. 40% of the market right now is being financed in the dark by private credit. That's a very big problem. That's a very big problem. On top of that, like we were talking about with the stock market before, this chart is insane. The five biggest U.S. stocks are now worth 4.9 times more than all small stock combined. Small cap, sorry. They're worth more than all small cap combined. That's a record high. And once again, 7 stocks are completely propping the stock market up more than it ever has before. So at some point it's got to go down. AI bubble. The second the AI bubble bursts, Nvidia is basically propping it all up itself. Well, the AI bubble is going to burst Nvidia. Again, look at this chart. Like that guy just wrote. All of the bottom stocks, all of bottom market stocks equal the same as 7 of the big stocks. You have monopolies. Now, what this tariff is also doing, like I said, it's creating bigger and bigger monopolies. Now, here's the problem with the tariffs also that people don't realize. We're losing jobs at a rapid rate. We're losing jobs at a rapid rate. And Trump doesn't bring that up. But what he does bring up is when somebody like Apple brings over a thing for 20,000 employees. Oh, we're going to bring over 20,000 jobs because Apple's going to go ahead and bring over these glass factories. Well, great. You also killed off more jobs than you created even with bringing people back. And what's going to happen? The second that Apple comes back, they're going to look over and say to everybody, "Hey, we're not paying the same wages. We have to keep these prices as high as we can, maybe even raise them because now we have to pay American people wages." Again, it's going to keep killing you, and again, they're going to raise the price of everything as I've shown you, as you've seen with this chart, but the only thing they're not going to raise is employees' salary. Now, here's the thing. Inflation is always throughout history in the last 15 years basically ate up wage growth. So you've always lost money even when you've gotten these small raises. It's ridiculous. If you look over here, S&P 500 S&P profit margins moved up 12.6% in the quarter, their highest margin since 2021. Again, they're kicking everyone out. They're pricing out everybody. And again, once the market's clear, guess what they're going to do? Keep the jacked up prices because that's the only place to go. And then they're going to say, well, they're going to start building more American companies. No, they're not because nobody can get a loan. I just showed you. No one can get a loan. How are more mom and pop shops going to come in and create competition and start producing in America when none of them can get a loan? When none of them want to take that risk because the risk just isn't worth it. Well, here at the same time, while all of this is going on, I want you guys to listen to this. U.S. corporations are on pace to conduct over $1 trillion in stock buybacks this year, breaking all previous records. Apple, Google, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley are among the companies buying back the most stock to enrich themselves and shareholders. Crazy. So why these mega corporations now, like I said, they're beyond monopolies. Monopolies were supposed to be destroyed so this doesn't happen. So there is no short and distorting. So there is no people stealing patents and getting away with it and getting paid to steal people's companies to crush out competition. Why has there been no innovation? Because short and distorting allows them to, instead of buying companies out or letting those people maybe get into the market, they tell all of their buddies, don't give them loans, make them come through me. Then they get convertible notes. They attach them to the loans. They attack that company. They keep asking for more loans and more shares to bail the company out. They don't let them expand because they can't get loans to expand unless it's through them. And then they just bash them on media, social media. They bash them in the media, and guess what? They own the patent. They put it in a vault. And now there's zero competition and zero innovation other than by who? The big companies. And all it is some patent they put in a safe 10 years ago that they stole from some average hardworking Joe. And then they buy back and buy back and buy back and buy back every year. We have trillions of dollars for buybacks, but we don't have any money. We have no money to give our employee proper wages. If we have to give them if we have to, that's what they convinced everybody. If we have to fucking give people bigger wages, we're going to have to increase prices. No, you can just do fewer buybacks and you can increase people's wages. Oh my God, crazy. But again, the problem is since they outsource all of these jobs and they do it for pennies on dollars, they don't care about worker and they don't care about the worker class because most of these products are half-assed compared to what they were 5, 10 years ago anyways. But as you guys see this at the same time as they're doing corporate buybacks at the highest level, U.S. layoffs have surged to the highest level since early months of COVID. So while they're doing share buybacks, they're firing everybody at the same time to make sure they can get those share buybacks. Over the last 30 years, the purchasing power of the U.S. consumer dollar has been cut in half due to inflation. And this is why I told everybody, just, put your money in the S&P, keep building those S&P funds, keep building those S&P funds slowly. Over 30 years, the S&P has gained 874%. 8% after adjusting for inflation. So people that put their money in the S&P every year, no matter what, they gained money. And they gained money at a very, very healthy rate. Anybody that held it in a bank, all your money, one of the reasons why you couldn't get ahead is, guess what? They were inflating and devaluing all the money you were making. And then they went ahead and printed 16 trillion for COVID, gave it all to their friends, and then they funneled it offshore. Now, one of the things I want you to hear quick before I go on is this clip. I knew I should have played it, but listen to this. 2 seconds. Here you go.
In transnational fraud rings, terrorist organizations, nations, nation states, North Korea, nuclear weapons programs funded by our tax dollars, China, Nigeria, Iran, Romania, Russia, not our friends necessarily, that are being funded by taxpayer dollars. Could you give us some examples of how this is happening?
Yeah. So when you think about what happened during the pandemic, $1 trillion was stolen. 70% of that money went overseas.
Did you just hear what he said? $1 trillion was stolen, and 70% of it got funneled overseas. So they made sure they just tucked away a quick $800 billion. And that was just one little instance that they found, and that's just of them like stealing in all these programs. That's not counting the stimulus checks that they gave them, the trillions of dollars that they gave them for PPP loans and stuff like that. This is what's the problem in America. Like I said, we end up electing Senator criminal felon Rick Scott and wonder why Rick Scott commits crimes every day and steals hundreds of trillions or hundreds of millions of dollars. Why don't these guys look out for us? Because none of them give a shit. They care about making as much money and taking as many legal bribes as possible because they made bribes legal. The people that are supposed to police people in the United States, the regulators, the FBI, the Doge, instead of being used to go after criminals like Rick Scott, what they do is they go after people that don't agree with Donald Trump. They're now going after some federal chairgirl for mortgage fraud because she won't lower the interest rates because Donald Trump doesn't understand how the economy works and is a fucking retard. I guess Donald Trump doesn't care that core inflation just went up to 3.1% and tariffs are just about to hit, and if he does lower them, you're looking at 5 to 6% inflation, which nobody can afford anything now. Now you're going to add on 6% inflation with tariffs. Like I said, guys, it can only last so long, and I told you guys that at some point this is going to come. There's going to get a point where too many fucking people are hungry. Too many people don't know why they can't afford a thing, and they're going to start asking the real fucking questions. And it's when these people are broke, about to lose their house, they will finally go, why is this happening? And they will finally understand. Republicans don't give a shit about you. Democrats don't give a shit about you. Every one of them is rich. Why would they do anything to hurt rich people? The entire system is so corrupt at this point. Anybody that does go in and want to do good, they get outvoted 90-1 anyways. And then eventually he realizes he can't beat the system, and in a year or two they break down and join the system. And then it's a revolving door. Again, tell me why a SEC regulator can go get a job at a bank. Should never be able to be allowed. Why can he go get a job at a firm? It should be 10 years after before they can go get a job. But instead, hey, let me get away with 15 crimes. Let me steal $2 billion this quarter, and then we'll give you $100 million or $10 million cushy job when you get off. Okay, no problem. Oh, and then catch us though, catch us because I want you. See, this is what people don't understand. When I show you these bank fines, these banks and these firms, they pray to God they get caught. Because if they get caught, they can sign an acceptance, waiver, and consent, and nobody can come after them criminally. They're off the hook. They just pay their fine and there's no chance of jail. And guess what Senator Rick Scott did? He went ahead and, for 14 felonies, he stole billions of dollars from elderly. He stole billions of dollars from elderly. And we rewarded him with a political seat. We rewarded him with a political seat. Now listen to how funny this is. Where is he a senator? In Florida, where all the oldest people, the oldest population is in Florida. And guess who he stole it from? The very people that put him in office. He steals from them, and they reward him with a government job where he steals from more of us. And now, instead of stealing just from them, he was able to steal nationwide. And he's stolen $300 million in the meantime. Senator Rick Scott is the biggest pile of shit I've ever seen in my entire life. He needs to be thrown in prison. Every penny that his family owns, every asset that he owns, every single dollar that he has should be stripped and returned to the public and given straight to the Treasury. All 500 million plus of this criminal's money should be stripped and put right into the Treasury, and he should be straight in death row at this point, because if any of us did 14 felonies and stole billions of dollars, that's where we'd go. Politicians should not be politician CEO. Where in the United States, where in the entire justice system does it say, if you're rich, you can do anything, just pay your fine? Where do we ever get that option? How many people around the world now in the United States would steal if they had the same rules as these guys? All of them. Why wouldn't they? Oh, imagine this. Imagine you went into Walmart, you stole 5 TVs, 10 PlayStations, and a cop was standing outside, and all he said to you was, "Hey, give me one of those PlayStations and get on your way." What are you gonna do? Are you gonna visit that store again? Because that's what these guys do. The police come up to them and say, "Hey, give me one of those TVs and you take the other 12,000, 15,000, 27 million, $2 billion worth of the citizens' 401k money or their money that they just made on a paycheck, because we're going to screw them on stock." And to prove my point here as well, look at this. Retail investors are losing billions right now on small cap stocks. And this is what I'm talking to you guys about. There is a lot of people right now. It says retail is losing billions on small cap stocks, and as I showed you guys, small cap stocks values are just plummeting. Retail cannot buy these. Again, look for high-end retail stores that people can't afford. Nobody's gonna, just like I said, just like fucking. There's a couple names I want to put out there, but I'm not gonna throw them out there. I'll throw them in the Discord, but you should be able to think of some high-end retail that you're like, who the fuck shops there? Well, now nobody. It's got to be like a mid-range, because rich people at the super high ends are still buying those, because rich people have their money, they don't care. But you got to think of like the mid-tier type things. Like Bed Bath and Beyond was expensive to most people, but it wasn't a super expensive store that you think of as high class. Do you see what I'm saying? Those are the type of stores you want to go get. But again, let's get back into this. But like I said, this is all going to come to an end in the end of the day, because inflation's rising. Inflation, actually, they lied to everybody on their things. It got revised once again. Core inflation was up to 3.3%. PPI was up to 3.3%. Sorry, core inflation actually rose to 3.7%, and this is tariff. So like I said, guys, if you're listening to Donald Trump and you think he's correct on them dropping interest rates, I promise you in a month you're gonna fucking hate him for it because everything's gonna fucking skyrocket and then it's even gonna get a tariff price on top. Core inflation is spiking, but he does not like to mention that. Again, the amount of spare cash flow around the United States financial system is shrinking pretty quick. And as you're seeing that with the reverse repo because one of the things that was propping this market up, so which is why I'm saying you're going to have a crash soon. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You're going to have a crash soon because one of the things that was propping this up was the reverse repos with the Federal Reserve. As we showed you guys the trillions and trillions of dollars that poured into the reverse repo, it was excess cash that the Federal Reserve gave them. They gave it back to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve took that money, bet it in overnight index funds, and then paid them interest to be able to take a one-night overnight loan for them. So that is why everybody was doing it because the Federal Reserve was making money. Banks were making money hand in fist. But the problem is all of these banks, even with all of that money and everything else, they suck. They gotta gamble and they lose it because they're fucking greedy and they're really shitty at their jobs. And now we're at the point where the reverse repo is down to 28.81%. So again, that means their access cash, their cash that they have just accessible to go give to the Federal Reserve overnight and make a little extra money is gone. It's drying up. Their excess liquidity is drying up. And that's what you want to start to see when this goes down. At this point, you're looking at nothing but money market funds. Now, I showed you guys the money market funds have hit $7.6 trillion. So at this point, when you look at the participants, you're looking at 14 to 29 at small amounts, but you're looking at super small amounts. You're to the point where banks have actually ran out, and you have about 3 or 4 banks in here, and you have nothing but money market funds. So this is actually great news for us because, again, all the people, the banks that are giving the hedge funds, these criminals, market makers, all of these loans to be able to keep doing crime from you, are running out of cash. This is what we've wanted the whole time, and we've wanted to cut the head off the snake. I said if you're in JP Morgan Chase, get out. Cut the head off the snake. You will be very glad you did. Now, one of these things, well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's either you're either going to have a crash because when you look at this, and this is how this is a smart way to play it right now. Look at it and say, hey, you have so much concentration in the S&P. You either have to have a crash in the S&P stocks or the Meg 7. You either need and the top, like I said, because they're basically propping it all up. If you have a crash in those Meg 7, or you're going to have a giant surge in small caps at some point. So what do you think is more likely to happen? Do you think more likely the Mag 7 is going to crash, or do you think that they're just going to take over? They're going to make so much money still, be able to do all these things, and keep up the power that they're holding? Or do you think eventually small caps will come striking back? Right now, again, retail is getting smashed on small caps, so be very careful if you're going to ride a small cap. Be very cautious. Look into the stocks finance. You guys, it's so easy to look into a stocks finance. Before you buy a stock, look at know why you're going to buy it. Don't just go, hey, some guy in Reddit said that there's short interest. Look at the stocks finance. It takes 10 seconds to Google. How much debt does company A have? How much cash on hand do they have? And are they profitable? That's the first thing you type in Google, and it will tell you all 3 of those answers. And if it's a healthy, good-looking, growing company. Hey, is this a good growth company? And then you look at the short interest. Why do these guys need to cover? Why are they shorting it? And you can figure out things. Because again, just because a stock's shorted doesn't mean they need to cover anytime soon. The more people that jump on the train, the more likely that they are all in the green, because that means more than likely the stock price has been able to jump down or outpass retail at that point. So Again, squeeze season is always here, but make sure you look at the right ones. Make sure you're cautious. But again, when you're looking at this, do you think the S&P is going to keep it up? Do you think the Mag 7 is going to keep destroying, or eventually are they going to have to do something? But if you guys keep looking over here, with all of this liquidity drying up and stuff, one of the things I wanted to point out as well with the government, with everything coming, because nobody is talking about this, and it's insanely important, and it's just like Trump's first term. We're going to have to bail out the farmers again. U.S. farm trade deficits hit records as historic shift deepens. Farmers right now are getting absolutely crushed. Farmers are getting crushed, and this should scare a shit ton of people, and I'm going to tell you why. The number one farmer right now who's been scooping up the lands, go ahead and Google who's the biggest, who owns the most farmland in the United States. It's Bill fucking Gates. Bill Gates is out there buying up all your farms. He's watching all these farmers go under. He's buying up all their farmland. He's taking their animals. He's experimenting on their fucking animals. And then look at this. Before I show you that chart here. But then look at this. Americans get 55% of their calories from ultra-processed food. Listen to me one more time. Americans get over 55% of their calories from ultra-processed foods. That is insane. That's ridiculous. They're literally selling you slop. They're selling you stuff with chemicals that cause cancer. Then they sell you a sunscreen that causes cancer. And then they sell you the antidote to cancer. And then they tell you that radiation is good for you. No, don't worry, radiation's great. It's the cure. No, because if you die from radiation poisoning and chemo, my mom had chemo multiple times. She went through it multiple times. She's went through a lot of different things. The chemo was killing her, and I told everybody about that chlorella. If you're listening, you know somebody with cancer, there's a drug out there, and it uses seaweed, and it's called chlorella. It's CHEO or CHEROLA, and then type seaweed. She took that, and it actually started. Her stuff went away very, very quickly. Actually, after that, so just there are methods out there that aren't just poison yourself. But like I said, that's my point. They tell you these other things are good, but you know for a fact that radiation can't be good for you. But again, if you guys look down here, I wanted you to see this because this is, where was it? It was the children. Here you go. Children and teenagers account for 62% of their calories come from ultra-processed food. Basically, we're feeding our children junk. Robert Kennedy's, getting some of these dyes removed. They talked about getting it out of Kellogg's cereal. Kellogg's cereal is now removing that red dye that's actually causes chemicals or cancer that they found. So we were feeding our kids, in Fruit Loops and things like that. All the colors they were causing cancer, crazy. And so I mean, there's a lot of good here coming from. He's the only good thing that I feel like about this administration. At least he's getting some of this down. But again, you're going to have a whole bunch of a whole bunch of these farms going down. You're going to get bailouts here for farmers. If you're looking for other trades, kind of look at who you think would be affected by a bailout, by farmers collapsing. There's a lot of stocks out there that will be completely affected by this. So moving back on here. Student loan delinquencies have now hit the highest in 21 years. So this is my point at this point. Retail is starting to break. It's not bending anymore. Retail's starting to break. Retail's starting to actually break down. If you guys look at the population, the growth, the new births is the lowest we've had pretty much ever. Nobody's having kids anymore. And when you talk about all of these people like Bill Gates, well, this is what they wanted. They wanted depopulation for how long now? Another reason why people aren't able to have kids is, when you look at this chart here, it costs about 24,000 to 147,000 for daycare for a year. 147,000 to 24,000. So it's pretty much a full-on job, a full-on paycheck for somebody to just pay for the daycare. Now the other person has to pay for housing, the the utilities. Well, how is anybody ever supposed to gain or get ahead? You're not. And then on top of that, they keep causing more inflation, keep printing. Again, we added $1 trillion in a month. What happens when we add another trillion? Well, what's going to end up happening is the 10-year is going to go up. The 10-year rates are going to go up, and all this progress that Trump has made on auto loans, it's only gone down a small percent, but that little percent is now going to jump back up. You're going to get back into the sevens. You're going to get a percent for mortgages. You're going to get back into the 24% for credit cards. You're going to get back in, I think it's like 16, 18% now for auto loans. It's ridiculous. People are paying $800 a month on these cars. So again, all these companies are going to start to get priced out. And when you look at NVIDIA, unless there's demand by AI and AI demand, eventually that bubble's going to burst because gamers aren't going to be able to afford these cards anymore. Gamers aren't going to be able to afford the new tariffs, all this stuff, the new pricing. It's just not going to happen. So they're going to start to lose money. But as we've seen before, they just keep cooking the books with CoreWeave. But eventually that's got to come crashing down. But I wanted to show you guys this also because, again, back to wage problems and what they've convinced everybody is, if you guys look at this, buying a median priced home now requires a 124K income. So buying an average house at this point requires you to have 124,000 income before they approve you. Now, that is 57% above the current median pay rate, which is $79,000, which tells you the only way to afford a new home is to be in a relationship. And you both better be making about 60, 70K. You both better be making that average salary. And then you can go ahead and get one of these new $450,000 homes that aren't even as good as old, houses built how long ago? They're built half-ass now. Been in construction for a long time, trust me. The new houses, the new kits we use kits now. They're pre-planned playout kits. And we literally just pop some walls up, drill them out. They're kits. They're not even houses anymore. They're just small kits that you put up over and over. And then you have maybe 2, maybe 3 different kits for the whole block. And the whole block has the same freaking 3 houses over and over. And you do it every other house so it looks a little different. Maybe turn them differently. But that's all it is. It's just kits after kits after kits. So at this point, you either need to have a massive wage gap or you're going to have a housing crash before anybody's going to be able to afford homes. Well, the problem is how the hell are you going to do that when now they own your electric company and now they own your electric bill and it costs you more to turn on your computer now than it costs you for your car payment? Like I said, we're letting these guys take everything, steal everything, do whatever they want because they have no competition, charge whatever they want, say that they need to keep making record profits, they need to keep doing share buybacks, steal everything, commit crimes, and then we put those people in charge. This has no good ending in sight. That's why I tell everybody, get out of the system. Get the fuck out of it. Get gold. Get silver. Eventually, this is coming down. There is no hope at this point because they don't stop. And it's already to a point, to a number that how do you fix $37 trillion? How? How do you fix the deficit that's growing and growing and growing by the month? How? Tariffs aren't going to get there because, again, Eventually you're going to price retail out, which means they're going to import less, and they're going to import less because you're already going to have supplies. So eventually people aren't going to be the tariff money is going it's going to go up right away right now, and then in a month or two when everybody's restocked up and nobody can afford anything, which was what Trump's not paying attention to. No more tariff money's coming in because it's not coming in through the ports. They're not fucking importing parts. It's sitting on the shelves. And they don't give a fuck because they can still do share buybacks. They're all billionaires. They're all millionaires. They don't care. They'll just fire more employees. There are now 511 new homes for sale in the United States, the highest inventory since October 2007, right before the crash happened, because they had to get rid of them all and they created CDOs to get rid of them all. And then the federal government came in and the Federal Reserve bought 2.7 trillion in mortgage-backed securities to bail out failing banks even more. But the problem is like I said, you have 511,000 homes out there, but look at this. Like we said, you have one firm, one private equity firm owns 4,000 houses almost in one city. They don't care. They're going to hold that because it holds their value, because they're assets on their books that they can take out more loans and do wagers with and do everything else because they don't need the money for these homes. They can create CDOs, and then they'll create another CDO, and they will sell the debt on this house 5 times over before they worry about it. So they have no intentions to sell at lowering the price at any point. The people, when you look online and you see homes going down, that's because people are being foreclosed on. Those are the people that are, before they get foreclosed on, are trying to at least get money, pay their thing off, what they owe, make a little money, and not have their credit destroyed. If you look here, I put it. Oh, 1 second here. Sorry. There was a article I thought I had here, but it talks about foreclosures, and it talks about how foreclosures are at an all-time high. There was like 11,000 foreclosures last month. Where the hell is it? Here, I know it's zero hedge. Here, hold on. If I don't see it here in a second, I'm just going to keep moving on. But still, there was, the foreclosures on homes are skyrocketing. So when you're seeing all these price drops, $5,000, $10,000, the problem is that's just people that are in distress. So when they sell their homes, 10,000 under market price, they're distressed buyers. It doesn't lower the market value around that area. It's not lowering the prices like it should be, because it's now people, like I said, it's corporations owning them. It's not people. So it's just people passing more of these loans that they can't afford back and forth until they get kicked out and do the same thing. So again, at some point here, you're going to start seeing a very big, very, very big downside. So I suggest, start getting ready, start preparing for that, start looking at it, start looking at retail's money, available assets, and look at what's going to start happening here, because the problem is already all this debt is starting to catch up to retail. So all they're doing now is they're so embedded in debt, they're just paying, they're getting their paychecks and they're just paying interest payments. They're just paying all the more higher interest that they keep on paying, and they're gaining nowhere. So again, we're going to stop buying all of this stuff in retail. I know that there's a Best Buy that was near me that just went under in Apple Valley. Again, people aren't going to go buy electronics. These are the type of, plays you guys should be looking for. Again, only electronic stores, Radio Shack type things like that. Like I said, stuff like that. Obviously, Radio Shack's not one I'm telling you to go after, but that's an example. Stores that rely 100% on electronics, because their prices are going to jump up. Sony's going to raise prices on TVs. You just saw that gaming consoles are jumping up. So what's going to have to happen is people are either going to need to do what GameStop did here, or they're going to see their sales decline. Now, one of the things that GameStop did to try and combat the tariffs is you can get an extra $50 if you trade in your PS4, Xbox One, or Xbox X. So in other words, we'll pay the tariffs for you if you trade your system in here. So unless you start finding promotions like that, and again, I applaud GameStop here, you're going to start seeing, like I said, these guys are going to have a ton of problems selling these items, even old ones. Because now that all these, these went up, I guarantee you every single shop, everything around here is like, oh God, yeah, we're going to just jack them up, even if they don't need to. They're going to raise them 20, 30 bucks, even the pre-owned. So Facebook Marketplace is going to be looking a little better, but fuck Facebook. But again here, if you are in AMC, some more good news, non-stop good news for cinema. Just want to point some more things out. Apple TV Plus is increasing its subscription. Again, these things keep getting higher and higher and higher and higher every month. People are going to start to choose which one of these subscriptions they want to go with and get the fuck out of the rest of them. On top of that, if you look here, the leadership team at Skydance Paramount has no interest in original streaming movies. It's doubling down on making a ton of theatrical releases going forward. So Paramount is going to start doing as many theatrical releases as they can because they're no longer going to focus on their streaming app, which was losing them money. Now, on top of that, you got Paramount is in talks with Legendary. Like I said, they're trying to get more content. They're trying to get into theaters. They're now into talks with Legendary, and I'm pretty sure they actually acquired them now. And now any deal with them though is they're not going to be able to do Dune movies. They can't do MonsterVerse movies, but the films that they do or have still in the thing. They have the Hangover series. They have the Dark Knight trilogy. They have the Pacific Rim franchise. They have the Warcraft movie. They have DC films like Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, Justice League, The Great Wall. That's that movie with Matt Damon. It's kind of stupid. Skyscraper, the one with I think that's the one with The Rock. But as you can see, there's still a ton of great content now that they can go ahead and start creating movies for that they've wanted to. But a lot of these DC films, like I said, this is going to be good stuff here for anyone in AMC and anyone in the cinema movie or industry going forward. So right now we're sitting at 1.61 almost. So again, we're looking good. We're hoping we hit around 1.9 by the end of the month. And I feel like we can hit about 2.5, maybe 2.6 if we get some, one or two movies overperform here next month. But cash flow positive Q4, we should have a really big year or big quarter. And then going in 2026, like I said, everything's looking like profit. So does anyone have any questions at all? Talk about AMC. I just went over AMC. A lot of good stuff for them. A lot of good news. More and more people getting away from streaming. A lot of people saying we need to get back to theaters. More AMC news. Like I said, I could just go down my thing. You could see good news after good news here. Creator Stephen Knight wants the Peaky Blinders movie to be in cinemas. He does not want HBO to put it on in the streaming. So that's a great news right there again for us. I just saw another one I put up here a second ago. Oh, here you go, right here. More than 36 people, you guys. U.S. homes foreclosures jumped 11%. More than 36,000 people foreclosed on their home last month. That's insane. That's insane. So every once in a while when you see these like price drops of 10,000, that's because their house is about to be foreclosed on, and they have, if they do take that 10,000 bite, they can still pay their loan off, still have a little money left over, and maybe start an apartment or something somewhere with a couple months rent. But like I said, it's getting crazier and crazier and crazier by the day here. Eventually, this gong show's got to stop. There is a limit, and eventually they print or too much. Like I told you before, eventually they print their own people out, and then the people revolt because that's all they have left. I mean, the thing that blew my mind before I go The thing that blew my mind, people were fucking cheering on Donald Trump when bulldozers were ripping homeless people's shelters and stuff down. And then, so now you basically, it didn't, that's not going to make them go away. You just took their shelters away. And then, oh man, the crime went down a little bit because of all, dude, whatever. Eventually, what is you going to do? Start throwing in them everywhere? You're going to make Pam Bondi in charge of every police station in the world? Like, Nazi type shit going on right now. But, like I said, it's coming to an end. It's got to. Just make sure you guys are prepared. Gold, silver, assets, land, money market funds, treasury bonds. The only thing that scares me a little bit about treasury bonds right now, but I mean that's where all the money's playing, so they're not going to let it go too hard. But I mean, eventually, if the United States gets too bad, what if they default on their debt? But the only way I see them defaulting on their debt, like I told everybody about gold, is if they already have enough gold to create a new gold-backed currency. And if that's the case, that's still, you got gold, like I just said. You got gold, you got silver, you got all those. They're going to go up together. Like I said, it's assets, things you can physically see. Because for fiat currencies, they will print and devalue by the second. So if you are in a bank, again, get the hell out of it. Go to a credit union that gives you over 3%, or your money is losing value. Does Cash App doing the same thing as Robinhood does with AMC? Cash App, I'm sure it uses payment for order flow. Honestly haven't looked into it, but just Google, does Cash App use payment for order flow? If it does, then yeah, it's Robinhood rebranded. America is cooked, yeah, dude, we're pretty cooked at this point. We've let criminals steal and print for way too long, and then, and like I said, some people want to sit there and I know COVID. There's people that died and all this stuff, but it's like they needed a reason to print, and to me, it's not hard for somebody to just, oh man, a man-made virus happened to escape a lab right as we were going to announce. If you guys look, there was going to be a whole bunch of collapses and a whole bunch of failures right as COVID came out. Just something to look at and think about. But and last time, guess what? Last time there was another giant financial crisis like this, and the Pentagon was going to tell everybody they were missing $11 trillion. 9/11 happened shortly after, and Building 7 collapsed, and all the financial records and everything in Wall Street burned down that day. Just stuff to think about, my friends. But thank you guys for listening. I'll be back shortly, and